before I have the team come up, we're going to all sit up here and we'll have a conversation. But before I do that, I want to open in prayer. I want to just maybe set things up for a few moments. Then we're going to start off with just kind of a drive-through of Cuba. So some of our videos that we took and stuff, and some of the areas we went to, you'll get to see just a snapshot of a couple minutes of video that we kind of combined together. So, and then we'll start sharing some of what God did while we were there. So would you just pray with me this evening? Jesus, thank you for tonight. Thank you for just everyone that's able to make it out, Lord. God, we are so thankful for what you've done for our church, with the opportunity and the privilege we had to be part of the missions reach into Cuba. And Lord, not only those again on our team, but so many in our church that supported this trip and was behind the scenes praying, interceding, financially sacrificing. Lord, these testimonies are a result of all of that hard work. And just like we talked about this morning, I know our hearts are knitted more to this country than it's ever been before. And so we just pray tonight even for Cuba and the people there and these pastors as they continue to labor to reach the lost in a setting of great hopelessness, Lord. And we just pray that tonight our testimonies would bring you honor and glory. They would strengthen us as a church and encourage us in even greater missions, we pray. In Jesus' name, amen. All right, well, we'll kick off with the video, and then I'll have the team come up.
You on the bike? Maybe.
Looks like Wayne's driving.
El año de ese 59.
That blue car is from 59, the one they're washing there. I just dropped my glasses. Where are they?
Just a tunnel under the ocean.
It's scary. Yeah.
Go this way. Where is he?
Vamos rápido.
All right, I have the team come on up. What we want to do tonight is just share our testimony, but we don't want to just take turns, so to speak. So what we wanted to do is kind of more have a conversation where we're not just one person's talking, next person talking, next person talking. Then we can kind of fill in the details and stuff. Well, one of the things, and again, you guys can jump in wherever you want. So feel free to grab your mics and be ready to chime in. But one of the things that, as we landed, first thing you really want to do is find out a little bit about the people and stuff and what they're going through, what they're facing. And it was amazing to hear that the people of Cuba generally are making like $25 a month. I mean, a month. That's their income. And it kind of didn't seem like it mattered what career they were in. Like the doctors didn't make more than, somebody who was a teacher or anything like that. They were all making basically very little money. And so you just see a lot of need. Certainly is just a lot of need everywhere you go. And, it's communism. And if there's one thing I kind of wish our country could see is firsthand go to a communist country and see what communism does to a country. You probably saw the garbage laying around on some of those pictures. I mean, it's not that the people are dirty. They put the garbage there. The government just didn't pick it up. And causes a lot of disease and flies and things that the community then has to deal with. While we were even there, I think there was a virus going around and they weren't sure what the cause of it was. And some of them were saying that they think it has to do with the garbage. But of course, the government's not going to be honest with them about all of that stuff. Maybe that's what you got? You got to speak in your microphone, or they're not going to hear you. So, I mean, first of all, it was just kind of seeing the need of the people, and I don't know if any of you want to talk about what your impression was on the need of what you saw, but...
For me, I was actually quite unprepared to what I was going to expect.
He's in one.
Hello. Yeah, I was kind of unprepared to what to expect. We see pictures of societies like that, but to actually be there and experience it and feel it, it's like, it really kind of throws you off your guard, not knowing it. And, you were talking about the $25 a month. That equaled up to like, it was $245 a year or something like that. And the garbage that you saw there was a lot of that. The government comes around supposedly once a month to pick it up. And while we're driving by there, we're seeing people actually picking through the garbage doing that. I had taken a lot of pictures. I was showing a lot of the buildings. A lot of them you saw up there where they're so torn down. It's because they can't afford to maintain it. I thought it was from war, but no, it was they can't maintain it. And just the architect in there shows that there's a lot of history in there and a lot of good stuff. But then when the government came in and they can't support it, it just run down.
I've had a chance to travel a lot, and I've seen poverty in Africa and South America, but this is the first time everything was poverty. There was no nice neighborhood. Everybody was poor, and it's like, but at the same time, there was more joy there than we have here. It's like they've got something that means more. And we take, I think part of what I came back feeling embarrassingly filthy rich. It just felt not fair. Why do I deserve to live the life that I get to live? So, but I was blown away at I saw like happy faces there, joy faces that you don't see her as much.
So yeah, I expected to see the poverty and the lack, because when I go to Mexico, I get to see that poverty and kids always asking for money. But it's true. I mean, we didn't see people with more money or less money. It was across the board. Everybody needed money. Everybody was asking. You know what? People were not just asking for money. People came up to me and asked me, do you have something for the pain, medication for the pain? Do you have waitress at the hotel asked me, do you have medicine for high blood pressure? And I was like, well, I do, but not to give away. But she says, well, we take whatever you can give us, And so it was very heartbreaking. Even though I've seen poverty, it was heartbreaking to see that people don't even have a Tylenol for pain, for their kids. I would tell Teresa, when people come to you, just put your head down or just kind of nod and keep walking. Something I do in my country because I don't have thousands of dollars to give to everybody. But it is heartbreaking to see that. But I also saw that when people have, they don't just say, oh, I have something. No, they share it. Oh, I got this here. Let me give you some. Oh, here, oh, you need this here. Let me give you that. And I thought that was just beautiful because here we have to be taught that we have to care for one another. Over there, they know that everybody needs, and so automatically they share.
Most of our experience was driving through the van. We didn't have a lot of time walking the streets and a lot of interchange with people on the street. So I agree with everyone here. It was very difficult to even witness some of the things that I saw, but the people took pride in their areas. One particular day, it was a day that they were picking up the garbage, and on the corner of one, and a lot of these dumpsters were made out of plastic. They weren't even metal, so half of them were broken, holes. Yeah, they were not really great vessels to even hold the garbage. But there was, at one point, when we were driving down the street, I saw an older couple with their brooms after they came and got the garbage, trying to clean that street around the garbage. But it was, for me, I think I found it very difficult to look people in the eyes, because once you saw their eyes, you saw their souls. And when people asked for money or for something, it was very difficult to turn away and not respond in some form. And we had a lot of opportunity to bless people. There was a particular day where we were able to walk in a center, and there was this one man, and he was walking on a cane, and he only had one leg, and the one leg that he did have, he had some form of infection through it. And I think he commented on the length of his hair and the last time he got his hair cut. But Pastor Kevin, towards the end, as we were walking, it was encouraging to see them praying for him, for healing, and for God just to meet him. And the verses came to my mind, silver or gold we have none, but, praying for healing. Getting to know, I think the first time that we met the team that we were going to be working at the church, and Pastor Gary would start the day off with a devotional, and right there, you just sensed God. Pastor Kevin mentioned it many times, the weaving, connecting our hearts to one another, and doing that. And they had such hearts for service. We came there to serve, but they wanted to serve us, and that was very humbling, and it was difficult to even receive it. I wanted to help the women in the kitchen, and they said no. And it was really difficult and humbling to be served where they had very little, but they took so much pride, and they had such honor. They loved serving us. You can see it, and they loved Pastor Gary. I really, even starting, and then I'm going to shut up, but not knowing how God was going to use me or, what we were going to do, I saw how influential Pastor Gary's ministry is in Cuba, and I was on board. I quickly said I could buy into this, and by the time I left, we were leaving, and we were praying with the church that hosted us, and we were working alongside of. Your heart, you just didn't want to go. I want to go back. I want to learn the language. I want, God definitely was there working and moving, and it was a powerful time.
Well, I want to maybe highlight just a couple more things about just some of the challenges. I know one of the things that we take for granted is, you see a lot of these old vehicles and stuff around, and you saw the cars, but one of the things that you don't see behind the scenes is the government regulates how much gasoline people can have in a month. And a lot of times, like we would drive by gas stations, there'd be no one there, and then we're hearing them say, "Oh, we have to wait 4 hours to get gas." One of the guys even said they waited up to 4 days to get gasoline, literally waiting in line to just get gasoline for their vehicles. And there's such they don't have enough gas, obviously. And within that is these rolling blackouts. And so I think in the United States we hear every once in a while, Cuba doesn't have power now, but it happens every single day. And apparently I was shocked to find out it's been happening for 60 years. This isn't something new. Like, we're hearing about it, but it's, we were told by people that it's been going on for 60 years. Some of the areas, we weren't in those areas, they said they only get power 2 hours a day. So if you can imagine how hot it is, and then you don't even have a fan. I don't know about you, but I don't sleep well when I'm sweating and hot. And, it's just not a good mix. And many of them are dealing with a lot of mental health problems because they're sleep deprived and they're not having this power. It's affected them. And a lot of pastors says that has affected them more than the poverty is the rolling blackouts and what it's done to the people in Cuba. So yeah, there's just a lot of things that these people are wrestling with. With that said, I want to move in and just show briefly a short video of the church in Cuba. And our opportunities. I got the chance to preach twice. So you don't have to hear me preach, just a little snippet. But you get to hear some of the worship and yeah. And then we'll talk about ministry and church and pastors.
Chapter 9,
En Marcos capítulo 9,
the father comes to Jesus because his boy is literally trying to be killed by a demon.
un padre vino a Jesús porque su hijo estaba siendo atormentado por un demonio.
The disciples had already tried and failed to cast the demon out.
Los discípulos ya habían intentado sacar el demonio, pero lo habían fallado.
And when the father comes to Jesus for help,
Y cuando ese padre vino a Jesús pidiendo ayuda,
he's not sure Jesus can even help him.
él ni siquiera estaba seguro de que Jesús podía ayudar.
So he asks this in Mark 9:22.
En Marcos 9:22 él dice,
If you can do anything, have compassion on us and help us.
pero si puedes hacer algo, ten misericordia de nosotros.
If we had more of Jesus,
Si tuviéramos más de Jesús,
we would have more joy.
tuviéramos más gozo,
We'd have more peace,
tenemos más paz,
more victory,
más victoria,
more grace for other people.
más gracia para con otras personas.
Life would be better.
La vida podría ser mejor
We would be better people.
y nosotros seríamos mejores personas también.
I would say two things. One, that church that night, it was a night, Friday night, and there was a blackout in the community. So the church had its own generator, and that's how they were able to have church that night. And they were able to bring power in and show all of that. But the second thing is, it was hot. I mean, these people are dancing around and jumping up and down, and it is like you're not in air conditioning. It's you're sweating, and that joy and everything was super exciting. And so we had a chance to probably interact, would you say, with about 8 different pastors, and. The cool thing is every one of them had a miracle story.
Wasn't that the one where we were upstairs eating a meal and the power went out?
Yes.
What the one thing is that we're hearing this yelling while we're up in the room there, and when the power went out, turns out what they were doing is they were praying, and they were loud. For the whole time they were praying before we actually went down and had service, and then the service was loud. You know,
and the prayer time was before the service.
Yeah, and their prayer time was like about, I think it was like a half hour or something like that. Worship went on for, I don't know, a half hour. But one thing too is that in this place, the power blackout, I think, wasn't that the road that was really rough going down?
No.
Okay, well, I remember there was anyways. They wear this like the same clothes that we wear. You know, you see the ripped jeans, they wear this nice stuff, and everything else is what they've got. So they're not too much different from us, you know, in that respect. But when the power went out, and I was thinking as we were going home, is that they had to walk in this darkness to their homes, wherever it was. And some of these are just single women who have to walk through these areas, and it's like, that could be scary. I don't know what their crime rate for that is out there. So, yeah.
What was that particular Friday in the church that we visited, that was where the virus was, and most of the people were impacted by the virus, and so a lot of people weren't there, but there was a lot of people that did come, and I think it was Bob and I mean, these people are poor, but man, when that basket went around, it was full. It was full. The gratitude and the thanksgiving and the praise, seeing the youth, we talked about this a couple weeks ago, seeing the youth rush the stage area when they were called. It was like you were at a concert. The sound was awful, but it was so, but we talked about that, you know, it's not soundproof like this is, so it just, if you closed your eyes and did this, forget it. You had to keep your head straight. I did at least. But it was just so moving to see so many people up there wanting to get close. It was like the altar of God. They just wanted to get closer and to experience and be up front, not missing anything. That's what it seemed like to me.
It doesn't have to be about that night, just any of the interactions we have in ministry with the pastors.
Okay, pastors, churches.
Yeah,
Is this working?
I don't think so. Let's switch. Sorry.
Yeah. I guess one of the things that about their worship services in the churches is they didn't have big spaces to worship, but if you just took the center section here, they would get 200 people in here, and they did, and it's hot, and there's nobody has cars, so everybody's walked, some distance to get there, and there's a drive to come and worship. If it's a cold day or if it's warm or rainy, we use that as an excuse to, like, not today, I don't feel like it, I'm tired, I don't want to get out of bed. No, these guys were just dying to come and worship, and when they did get there, it didn't matter how hot it was. You saw what they would just go on dancing and singing for a long time, and I'm soaked with sweat. I'm out of energy, but they just keep going. So that was beautiful, and also the level of their faith, I think, was deeper than ours. They believed when they asked God for something, they believed in it, and they saw miracles. And we're listening to that one pastor that I think it was his wife had passed away, and he believed that God was going to raise her from the dead, and he did. It's like their faith blew me away.
Definitely, I think that was very striking. The heat, you're standing still, 87 degrees, 95% humidity. Just picture it. Just picture it. And people are walking and doing their, while we were working, when we were straightening nails, all these people kept coming down the street selling their garlic, their onions, whatever they grew, whatever they made, just to survive. And they walk for blocks and blocks, but again, even when they were selling, they were singing, and I thought, I think what really stuck with me was that the fact that they have all this witchcraft, the percentage is so high. And again, I'll talk about those vultures. Everywhere we went, there was vultures because of the sacrifices that the Santeria does or whatever. And there was a house next to the church. I just thought that was really interesting that they could be side by side. And I thought, well, that's pretty interesting. I'm sure they have a lot of fun on Sundays, just to hear the uproar of the people worshiping, and just really giving God their all. And they could be sweating, and I don't think they seemed to sweat as much as we did. It really just affected us, but they just really moved in God's spirit and trusted Him. We were singing this morning, I sought the Lord, and He heard and He answered. That's how they live. That one brother that took his daughter to the hospital, 3 different hospitals, and none of them had simple Tylenol to bring down that fever. And what did he do? He went home and he prayed. His daughter's doing really well because of their faith. I just thought that was amazing.
Well, you'll see if you look in the photos at the end of service, because we'll have them cycling through out there, and we have them cycling through up here as well. there's a monument, and it's really tall, and if you look really close, there's vultures, and that's because they did animal sacrifices, and the vultures are around, and so there's a lot of witchcraft and Santeria going around. So that was very, very evident. But, you know, none of that deters these pastors. These pastors were on fire and excited, and they all went through all kinds of trials. You can only imagine, like, they sacrificed everything for God in their communities. It was amazing to see. You want to share something? No. Oh. Did you remember?
Well, this is another thing now that brought that up, is that we went to, what, 7 churches?
Somewhere around 7 or 8.
The church that you guys saw the worship in there was, I think the building was completed, right? And so, you know, and I think don't they have like 2,000, or was it in that service?
I don't remember the amount.
Something like that. But some of the churches we went to, and some of the pictures are up there. One of them is really close to the coastline, and it's all open. And I think they had to raise that one 27 inches for the flood. It would get flooded out. And they're right in the midst, all the churches are right in the midst of neighborhoods that are really, there's really no area that's not impoverished. But the one that really stuck out to me was the one where, huh?
Williams neighborhood?
I think so.
That was a hard road.
Yeah, where,
Was that the one where they had all the Hemingway, where Hemingway went? Is that the church you're talking about?
I don't know. This is one where it looked like Cabrini Green, and the Robin Taylor homes were right across the street from them. That's one with all the.
That was on Sunday afternoon
That was-
after the
right.
church.
Okay, that one there, they're building, they have no windows, they had no doors in the front of the thing there. I think the churches had their houses in the church.
Some of them did, yes.
Yeah, and it wasn't complete, but as I was out there, I looked at those old, ugly-looking buildings right there that had windows busted out, no windows. Some had air conditioners in them, not much, but I thought, the thought came to me because, you know, they're in a perfect spot, because here we got all these people in this area, and they're going to get the gospel preached. And, you know, those guys were loud that we heard singing. That's how loud they are. And so, and without these windows and stuff, they're going to eventually get it. But it goes out, and all these people get to hear, and they're going to start hearing more. And all these people who have no hope are going to start getting some hope. I see revival taking place over there. I'm hoping that actually it spreads into the government myself. And then there was another one, which was the most touching to me. It was the, I don't remember the names.
Lucy and William?
Yeah.
Reese and William.
Yeah, she had told her husband, the pastor, that she wanted a home. You know, and right there, their whole house was the church.
Lift it up.
Hi. And in every room, something was taking place. They had, in the back room, they had kids' church. In the kitchen area, they have something going on. And then in the sanctuary, they had something going on. So they really never had a house. And so she told them, and so I forget how the rest of the story goes, but maybe you guys can help me on this.
Just that she had felt, she heard from God that they needed to start building this house in the back on top of the kids' church. They were going to build up, and that was going to be their house, and they needed to start, and they just need to keep working, and God would provide as they worked.
Yeah.
They had $100 to start off with, $100 to build a home. And they kept building, and the Lord kept providing. It was pretty amazing.
And he really did some really good work. I was surprised. But then while we were there, the pastor, Gary, he asked, you know, what would it take for you to finish this project? And he just kind of threw a figure out top of his head, and it was like $1,000 or something like that. And we helped on that, didn't we? The church, we got funds for that and do stuff like that.
I can't really say I know the ministry did. I don't know if it was part of the 10,000 we did or not, but
We're part of it. But anyways, Gary, he gave him what he asked that night, and he just broke down in tears. Him and his wife and stuff, and for $1,000 they were going to be able to finish that thing, and I'm looking forward to seeing what happens.
But just the type of faith that, I mean, this is the same family, and apparently Lisi was her name. She had some bone disease, and they said that she probably wouldn't be able to have children. And she believed God had promised her she would have a daughter, and so she literally was writing letters to her daughter, like frequently, and had all these letters. And all of a sudden she became pregnant and had the baby, and we got to see the baby. She's not a baby anymore.
Beautiful girl.
She's like 8 or 9 years old, and she got to read all these letters that the mom was writing to her before. And remember, she wasn't supposed to be able to get pregnant. She wasn't supposed to be able to have a child. But she heard from God, believed and trusted, and those are the stories of faith that we just heard over and over and over again.
The one that struck me was when we went to Kohima, where all the Hemingway, supposedly where he was. Somebody correct me because I don't remember exactly what it was. I don't know if it's an orphanage that they were working with the kids, where the parents go to jail and the kids get to stay in this home. And so I don't know if somebody from that church took in a little girl who had not been socialized, so she would just stay in a corner. And so this family kept her, was it 2-3 years? Something to that effect. And they worked with her, treated her like their own little girl, memorized scripture, and just growing up in the church. And mom got out of jail, and after a while she was allowed to, visit her or have her back. And she was like, wait, wow, this is a different child. She didn't speak when I left her. Now she's quoting scripture. I don't remember if the mom actually made it to church or if they were working on that. But that really touched me that they are working. I mean, again, they have no money. They have no money to support themselves, but yet they take in somebody like that who has a lot of issues, most likely a lot of medical issues, but they're willing to do that because of the love of Christ. And their faith, and just to see that child flourish and to know that child is going to grow up and serve the Lord. And I am so sure the Lord is going to use her mightily.
In many cases, I think almost everywhere we went, the churches were the nicest building in the area. And they're really, every one of them is a miracle building. So the church you saw with them worshiping and jumping up and down is 3 stories, is huge, monstrous building, beautiful building. And the pastor was telling us a story about how that got built, and there was a lady in the church who had a dream and a vision of people in parachutes landing in and building the church, and that was what was going to happen.
They had 2 belts. They were wearing 2 belts,
They were wearing 2 belts and parachuting in. And you know how that church got built? There was a team, there was a group of builders that came in on airplanes, and they literally got off the planes with their tool belts, and they built this church. And so part of it, so the church we were working in, when it's all said and done, the building's supposed to cost like $200,000. So, I mean, like for you and I mean, this is a whole church building. $200,000 most of us, our houses probably cost more than that or close to that. So, I mean, this is a whole church. But remember, the people are making $25 a month. There's absolutely zero chance they could build a building like that. So I know, like, we are like, oh, we had to raise $10,000 to go in and minister and help them. But you have to we really did something huge to help them. We were in another church, and they had like 200 people in, again, probably one area like this, and that was their sanctuary, and then the back room was a little area for kids, and one bathroom for the whole thing. And they were like, it'd be like, was it $1,000 to put a second story on and more classrooms and more bathrooms? I mean, it was like, well, let's find a way of getting them another $1,000 to do that. Like, could you imagine like hundreds of people and you have one bathroom to service all of those people every weekend when they come into your church? And so it's just amazing. They're utilizing everything they have, and they're but the work that we did, the money we raised, I mean, meant the world to them. It makes the church go so much further than they could do. So it was a really great partnership.
Even the church that we were working at, there was a gentleman, his name was Lawrence. Was that his name, Lawrence? Yes, Lawrence, the church that we were working at. And he was a pastor as well, and he was working on his own church. And so it was really encouraging to see pastors coming together and helping one another build these churches. But we got to hear some stories, and Tony talked to him more in length, but about his area and what God is doing there, and some of the stories of miracles and the excitement. Man, did he love Jesus, you know? He really, I mean, you saw it on him, right? I mean, he was always smiling, and just very helpful, and beautiful people.
I guess one of the things that struck me is how little we needed to give to make a huge difference. I mean, you know, what we give here, it means something. But when you talk about, like, you know, somewhere you see 10-fold, 30-fold, 60-fold, 100-fold, this is all 100-fold. It's like, I want to give to this place because it's like, this is really going to make a difference. And it felt like the church was exploding in this country. The government is a mess, the country's a mess. Cuba used to be the vacation destination of the who's who of the world. And, you know, it was that. Ernest Hemingway, Clark Gable, all these famous people would go to Cuba, and you could see the remnants of it, but it's all like deteriorated and fallen apart. And the reason you see all those old cars is because Fidel Castro's revolution happened in 1959, and they were shut off from the world. So the only cars they had were the ones that were there before 1959. So you've got 30s, 40s, 50 cars, 1950s, 40s, whatever. But, you know, when Castro shut down the country, let's see, where was I going with that? Wayne, I caught your disease. I'm forgetting things. I guess
They had to maintain them, you know, so it's not like you see these new 50, you know, a 1966 Chevrolet, I don't know if that's even correct, but they're
Just
mint
making
condition,
stuff up.
right? They're mint condition, they're beautiful. We sat in a couple, I mean, they have to maintain these, they have the parts, they're putting things together themselves, and it was scary driving in one, actually. I mean, it's just like,
they were so ingenious in how they could fix things.
Yeah.
And part of what like perplexed me is, there's not an AutoZone, there's not a parts store, there's no Target, there's no Walmart, there's no McDonald's. Any of the chain stores that we see around here don't exist there. Most of the businesses operated out of somebody's front porch. You would see, as we were driving down, they all had their houses, but there was a front porch area, and they would sell vegetables or toys or clothes or whatever. And it's like, how do they keep these cars running? Because you don't go and just order a new pair of brakes. Part of what Gary told us is there's a huge black market that goes on throughout Cuba that somehow they have to, it's like being in a prison. These prisoners find ways to get things that, how do they get them in the prison? I don't know. But that's how they got stuff into Cuba. It was somehow, nothing came from the US unless it was like brought in by groups like us. But there was some kind of black market smuggling thing through Panama.
Well, and just as an example, hey, Bob, what did you do a lot of work doing your whole time there? I mean, it seems strange when you hear it, but explain, like, the big difference it made. Like,
I spent the whole week straightening nails. I would get a huge bucket, a bucket like this of nails that are all mangled and bent up, and they gave me Lola. And Lola was this huge sledgehammer. It was a makeshift sledgehammer. It was just like this huge block of metal with a rod welded onto it, but it was a perfect flat surface to straighten the nails on. And the reason I had to do that is they couldn't afford new nails. They recycled everything. All of the wood, the lumber that they would use for forming, or you saw that scaffolding, it just gets reused and reused and reused. So,
there's no Home Depot.
Yeah.
Like, you literally can't just go down into the hardware store and pick up nails.
Yeah. I mean, when they first gave me the job, I thought, wow, this is pretty exciting. I thought I was going to do something meaningful. But
you did.
I mean, one of the men of the church, Moses, came up to me and said, the work that you just did today would cost them 80 to 90,000 pesos. There's a translation factor there, but it was a number that they couldn't afford. So
it meant something.
With also the wood that they were using, like you said, is reused, but when they're done with this project, now they sell it. So to get that, to be able to do stuff. Everything. When we were in there working, you saw a picture of Kevin and I up in there. We're standing on that wood and on a scaffold, and they gave us these axes, and they're not the really greatest axes either. One it had a rubber handle. The other one had a round handle. So you go to hit that, the thing spins on you. So you didn't really get it great. But we had to dent all the concrete. We had to hit this. Started out first day. We were there doing the work. It's all day. Boom. Just like this with a hammer. And we did about 5 rooms like that, the ceiling. And then we started doing some other things. But then they came back and the last day I think we did part of another room. But they had us help doing putting on the base coat of the stucco. And that was a fun thing there. Get that little wood handle thing there and a little trowel, and we take a scoop like this and whoop.
Hope it sticks.
And for most of the time, it slipped off the thing before we got it on the ceiling. But they would have us do that, and I started to get the hang of it after doing it. And we had to smooth it out and everything. And so that was interesting.
And they were able to do that with because Tony and I, for the first day and a half, sifted through this pile of gravel and sand, and so we had to sift it and to get all the bigger rocks out and then relocate it. And then at the end, the last day, or it wasn't the last day, but Wayne was then putting it in a bucket and pulling it upstairs, and Pastor Kevin was grabbing, and they would make the concrete or the spackle or whatever it was. No, that was fun. We took pride in shoveling gravel. We took pride in that. That was fun.
You know, there was another thing too. They talked about. I think that if they went out to go fishing or something like that to support their family, that the lobster or something, if they were caught with that, they would get arrested because the government owns the lobster.
Government owns everything.
They own the lobster and they own
The cows.
The cows.
They
That
own-
was
yeah.
another thing. If they have a pregnant cow and stuff like that, and it would to give birth or something, they would go in and take the cow before the government could get to it and everything, because the government owns the cow.
And they would even limit the amount of money that a family could make from their home. So those small businesses were very controlled. It's not like they could make a living truly for themselves. It was really difficult.
A lot of the houses too, like most of the buildings all had iron bars in front of the windows and iron bars in front of their what do you call it, porch area. And as Bob was saying, they have their businesses out of their homes. They were only allowed one business. They were only allowed one house, I think, and they couldn't sell the house unless something happened. I don't know what.
No, they couldn't. They could pass it down to family members, but they couldn't make a profit off of their own home. And you had to be Cuban to purchase a home.
Yeah, and so like we were driving along, and you see people out there getting haircuts quite often. The different places have barbershops. So the people really are really nice people that we've ran into and seen, and they have a sense of responsibility from what I'm seeing. They want to have something, but they are restricted, and I think they could be really productive if they were given the opportunity. You know, if the government would just lift some of their control on them. But we talked about, there was this one building out there, we could see it from our hotel. There's a giant tall building, and you could see the vultures just going around, flying around up there. And I think they said something like they did sacrifices up there on top of that building. The voodoo, I guess, is the big thing out there and stuff. So when the darkness comes in, God will raise the standard. So he's going to raise the standard, I believe.
Well, we were sitting there the last couple of days. We were straightening nails with Bob, and Teresa's, asking questions, getting to know the people, getting to know the country. And she asked, was it you or I that asked, do you have spiders?
That
Do
was
you,
me.
what kind of animals do you have? What is it that you have here in Cuba? And they were like, well, we don't have any snakes. No, I don't think we have, maybe little ones. And I said, well, it's a tropical place, Do you have like big spiders like they have in Australia? And he said, well, there's some big ones, but they're underground. And then there were two of them, and the one that answered looked at the other one that's standing and says, we have communism. We don't need anything else. It's just, even that they can have the energy or mental state to make fun of it, to survive.
Yeah, one of the pastors we were talking about, they were in the area where they had so whenever you saw the really tall buildings that looked like Cabrini Green, those were built by Russians. So the Russians had a big influence in some of the architecture and stuff. But the pastor of that church was a new pastor, but he was actually a doctor. So like that was his job. Most of them were bivocational. They worked more than one job, and he was a doctor. But it was interesting that the story that's happening a lot in Cuba, and you can understand why this would happen, would be a lot of the pastors are leaving Cuba and getting out of the country. They have an opportunity to open door. A lot of them were coming to America. A lot of them were going to other countries. The only problem is that they were leaving the ministry to do that. And they would think like they'd come to America or something and then they would be back in the ministry, but it wasn't happening. They couldn't be serving the way they were serving in America as they were in Cuba. Well, in this particular case, this pastor had family that was in Florida, and he got to come to Florida, but then the door closed and his wife couldn't come with him. So he went back to be with his wife, and I think they had a daughter. And within that, they began to see and this is one of those things where I think sometimes as America, we don't look at the closed doors as God moving, but they were seeing like God was moving him and keeping him in Cuba to do this ministry, to be a pastor in this church, that he shut the door and made it so that, that's where they're supposed to be. And so they're willing to sacrifice. But you can understand why you'd want to leave Cuba and have a better life for your family. But they have lost, like 1.8 million people over the last 10 years or something. So a lot of exodus has gone out, and a lot of those have been pastors in churches. So that's they're seeing some of that. But it was really cool to hear their testimony again, and they're staying in Cuba to serve that.
And what was really cool is seeing the pastors and their wives working side by side. One particular church that we went to go, they hosted us, we had dinner, and that was fish night, wasn't it? That was fish night.
Not a fun night for me.
That was fish night.
Swordfish twice the one day.
Yes, we had swordfish for lunch, which was delicious.
I don't like fish.
Yes.
It don't like me either.
But just seeing, that was the first time I really saw the husband and the wife working side by side, and that was huge for us, for me to see. That was a really good night to see how that couple ministered to the community together and how they honored one another, and they talked about their relationship and their ministry together, and you just sense
This is the couple
power.
that was talking about educating the next generation on the machismo,
correct.
and just cutting that off and hoping that to have a better generation without that machismo in the church.
When we first got there, I was trying to make sense of the whole economic structure of Cuba, and I would ask Gary questions, and his typical answer was that it's not going to make sense. It doesn't make sense. The government, but I think by the time the week was over, what made sense to me was that the government wants to keep the country in poverty so that they can't revolt again. It's like this is their way of keeping control over the people. And what it felt like to me, hearing the stories of the pastors and the people, there's going to be a revolution in Cuba. And it's going to be God. The church is going to take over that country. God is. And Cuba can't stop it.
And one of the things the pastors kept saying, and I was impressed with how bold a lot of these pastors were, because even though it's a communist country, they never acted like they didn't have freedom to speak. And there's one in particular, the pastor said that, and he was the assistant superintendent of the Assemblies of God in Cuba, so he was high up. But somebody was following him all the time, taking pictures of him everywhere he went. And he was well aware of that. But one of the things that the pastors kept saying was, everything is broken. Cuba, nothing works. The government doesn't work. The only thing that works is Jesus works. Only God works, and that was they would preach, and that's our only thing that works here.
And the church is growing. Yeah, it was really.
The people aren't going to hear you online.
Yeah,
That's all.
I'm sorry. Yeah, the church is growing. It's really interesting. The one night, Friday night, when we were leaving and seeing people on the street, just hanging out because the blackout, there's nothing else to do. So they're out there, talked about generators. Not everybody has generators. And if you do you have gas?
Yeah.
Gas is an issue. Everything is just so controlled. The freedoms that we really, truly have, it's hard.
Yeah, we would be driving home at night, and the transit systems, they got buses like we got buses, and they got taxis and stuff like that. But they would sit at bus stops late at night waiting to get a ride home, and they don't run on a regular basis like we have here. But as we're talking about the churches, my personal point of view is that where they're located, I think, are strategic locations because of who they're reaching, and so yeah, there's just so many people in those areas that it's going to spread.
Every once in a while, you'd see something funny, like a couple riding a scooter, and the husband carrying a brass bed as he's driving it, or the cake,
Or their baby.
Or the
baby,
dog.
or the dog. There's a couple with a dog in between them. And they're
They could get a
Riding on
family
the
of
scooter.
4 and the dog on
That's
a
right.
moped.
Yeah, on this little moped. Yeah, it was pretty amazing, and they're aggressive. We were surprised that there weren't more accidents, but I mean, it's really strange because there's no lanes. Well, there are, but they're not marked really well, and so people just.
Well, they're avoiding the potholes.
There's more potholes than
so
street.
many.
And even the 3-year-olds, estimating, because there's so many potholes, you literally have to drive like this, and so are the other people coming this way. But kids at 3 years old, they see a car and they're playing, and they just kind of wait it out, and then they go right back to play in the pothole.
And you would think that it rained every single day because there was puddles everywhere, and it was sewage. So people are walking through sewage, and it's just, again, illnesses. It was, yeah.
We were going like 50 miles an hour through city streets playing chicken with the next car. It was like constant.
Yes, all the time. Yeah.
So you learn to pray at a different level. What I like to do is, you don't have to fill up this time, but I would say take a maximum of 5 minutes more. But if each of us take a turn and just maybe share a little bit of what God did for you personally on the trip, and then we'll wrap up. So,
Well, for me, again, it just really brought this revival, to me, something I've been asking for, just bring this revival, and then going and seeing the people, in that state and how they worship, and again, that woman that sang behind me at the top of her lungs and sang as badly as I did, and I thought, wow, this is just amazing, just to see them give their all. And the Sunday church, there was a song that just really touched me that says, I come to you with empty hands. I can't impress you. I have nothing to give you. I cannot impress you, but I come with empty hands, and I know that you will fill them. I can give you my heart. It is all yours, but it's also broken. But I know that you will fix it, and I know that you will mend it, and I just come to you with empty hands. Fix them. And I came back with that, and I said, God, I really can't impress you. I can't sing I can't do a lot of things, that you would think, okay, I can come and just worship you with this beautiful voice. There's a lot of things that I think I can't do. Like Teresa has amazing skills, I always say. But you know what? I was sharing with Wayne that God has used me when I go to the grocery store and I see somebody crying and I can reach out to that person. And that's how he can use me. And I said, God, bring that revival. Start with me. Bring that revival. And I want to see this place full of people just giving him all the praise and the worship. Here, just letting it out. We worship you. We lift you up. That's what I want to see. And that's really what God did for me.
Just before I give you one more second, I think. So, I just want to say this. I know even going into the trip, Tony was like, how's God going to use me? And, she probably was one of the most, I don't want to say important people on the team, but she helped every single one of us because she was a bridge in so many ways to either tell us what somebody was trying to tell us, or we could tell somebody through her because she was our interpreter many times. And just, it was such a blessing to have her and just to see. And I know that it brought her joy because she saw God using her, and she wasn't sure how it was going to happen. But it did in a great way.
Big time.
Just 2 seconds. He did. I mentioned to the interpreter that I had not interpreted like that in about 10 years, and I miss interpreting. And he said, oh, good. Can you help me out? And it was amazing to be able to do that and to be used by God. I couldn't interpret for him all the time because I couldn't understand. That first video, I had no idea what they were saying. One, because it was so loud, because the way they speak is so fast. But God did use me in that way, and I find that to be just a gift, a gift. The interpreter that we had, I literally had to ask him, okay, so how did you learn the language? You are fluent. He said, God did that for me. He showed me where to look and working with Pastor Gary. And here I thought, well, I went to school. But, God did that for him. And I said, God, I want that. I want that. So who knows, maybe the Lord used me to interpret again.
And they loved her. They loved Tony. They looked for hot sauce for her. But when she came...
Because they don't use hot sauce in Cuba.
They don't use hot sauce in Cuba. But they truly loved her. And she was even able to give some needed massages. I mean, she was... But they truly, they lit up when they saw her. Yeah, she's...
Well, and like she said, she gave the interpreter a break. And one of the things you have to understand is the interpreter is interpreting both ways, and a lot of times at meals. So, while one person's speaking, you'd eat, and then the next person was speaking, they would eat, but the interpreter's not eating because he's interpreting both ways. All right, Bob. I'm sorry, I won't cut you off again.
No, it's okay. Chino was our interpreter.
Yes.
And he was really good. It was amazing. But she was better. Way better. I felt incredibly blessed. I mean, my life is blessed. I live a wonderful life. God has been incredibly good to me. And it felt really good to go on this trip. And literally, by the time we were done, I'd given everything I had away. When we got on the plane, I literally had $1 left. And one of the moments that touched me the most is it was the last day we were walking through Old Town Havana, and there's this one woman and this one gentleman, the man with one leg and crutches, and they just followed us, and they were just kind of unrelentingly begging for money. But at this point, I didn't have anything left, and I was just cold. No, I don't have anything. And, they didn't believe me. She walked away from me, cussing me out. But I'm going to have a hard time getting through this. I was just cold. I just said no. But your pastor did something I should have done. Anybody should have done. When shortly after the resurrection and Jesus Christ had been risen up, Peter and John were going to the temple. And they saw a man begging, and he got attention. And Peter and John said, we don't have anything to give you. But what we do have, we give you. And they prayed for him, and he was healed. And that's what Pastor Kevin did with this man. He stopped, and he prayed with them. And then I saw the others gather around and I'll pray for this man. And it's like, dang, that's what I should have done. And it's like, so I was inspired and touched by Pastor Kevin's moment there with that man.
I told you I was going to cry.
I think one of the things that really, how God spoke to me through all of this was one particular day we were driving, and I was kind of thinking about the things that we had seen and how purpose-driven they were, focused on the task, devoted. We talked about to the communities and serving the Lord and excited. And I am easily distracted, and there's many things that I waste my time on, and that I can become lazy. And I was getting lazy. And so since then, trying to not be so easily distracted by everything around us, the busyness, but being more purposeful about what the Lord has for me to do in the kingdom of God. And sometimes that's, I was sharing with someone before this, sitting at the feet of Jesus and waiting on him and not being so busy doing a lot of things, but being more purposeful and more deliberate and not be so caught up in the distractions that I want to just escape. That makes sense.
In this country here, we have people that are on the streets, a lot of them who can work and decide not to work, and there are those who can't work because of physical ailments or something. So it's really hard to know to make the right decision and who to help. But in Cuba there, when you start seeing people asking for money, and you give them something and they come back with a half a cigar and want to sell you that half a cigar for more money, or just seeing there's this one particular man at coming out of the restaurant. He wasn't in the restaurant, but he came out asking for money, and he was in tears. I mean, he was crying. And I've never seen a man like that cry like that, just looking for money. And I didn't have it. It's like I said at the very beginning, I was really not prepared what to expect out there. And so, and for me is, you know, at times we get complacent in our walk. And I had told Pastor Kevin that I had read Haggai a while ago, and he mentioned part of it this morning and about consider your ways. And I shared that on Wednesday night at the lesson, consider your ways. And I had to, I am considering my ways, you know, what am I doing? And watching the people there in their poverty, worshiping with all they have. And being in a country where we have so much freedom, we get complacent. And, you know, I guess I am probably complacent myself, most likely. But so it was hard, you know, to not knowing what to expect. But it's making me really start to think, you know, about how I view people. And it's not going to be easy. It's not going to come quick. But and I, you know, at times I do help people when I can and stuff. But it really makes you think. And I think if I would go back there again, or should I go back again, I have a different way of looking at it. I do have a giving heart, but it was just, it threw me off. And so it was tough. So, and the worship, I miss that. I miss that worship, you know, and I would love to see more of that. So I just have to really consider my ways and what I'm doing, and I'm reaching out people. I don't know if I answered the question right, but
There is no right or wrong way to answer it. Obviously, over the last few weeks, getting to preach and stuff, little bits and pieces, I've come out from my own life with implementing them into messages and stuff. And I think probably the biggest thing for me has literally been Revelation 3 is just this idea that we're rich and we have everything we need, and realizing that all of a sudden you're around people who have nothing and they are rich in God, and you realize you're a lot more poor than you think you are. And that's really been just something that God has been working in my own heart over the last few weeks that we've been back is really that Revelation 3, and realizing, you know, my passion for God has to be solid. You know, I can't just be complacent, go through life, and you saw a passion there. You saw a pursuit of God there. I mean, God was all they had in many ways, and that really is what we have to get back to ourselves, is realizing the most important thing we have is God. It's not these other things. So obviously there's an influence in the series we're in right now that is being impacted by this trip to Cuba. But it's very real, and it's powerful. It's been, I think it's changed all of us, for sure. I think all of us would love to go back someday, and who knows, maybe we will. I think there's a good chance. I really think our hearts are knitted, like we talked about this morning, to at least these pastors. I think all of us literally felt a sadness when we had to say goodbye to the people that we got to spend really only 5 days with. But we felt like they were our brothers and sisters in Christ, and we felt connected to them. It's a beauty of the body of Christ. Even though when I say we outside of Tony, we couldn't really communicate to them that well and have conversations like we would normally, yet we felt connected. It was powerful. Anybody want to add anything?
Did they have any questions?
Yeah, anybody have any questions? Yes?
Were you allowed to bring stuff in to help the people, or do they have any limits on that, on what you could be behind, or customs concerns?
I mean, I know like we were supposed to be limited to a certain dollar amount of what we brought in. I think it was under five, as long as it was under 5,000, it didn't matter. Some of it depended on obviously weight of our bags. So like, I mean, Pastor Gary brought, I think, an extra suitcase that was just to give stuff to people. We ended up having a suitcase and a half.
Yeah, we had 2 suitcases of products, of things to give away from.
We apparently didn't communicate well because we didn't know we were all bringing stuff. And now, next thing you know, it's like, whoa.
Yeah, my suitcase was filled with stuff to give. I just wasn't sure exactly what, they needed.
I think at the airport we had to shuffle a little bit around between our
Right.
bags just to make
Take
it
a
work.
5-pound bag of candy here.
Right.
No, I'll just add this. There was one particular person that the Lord really had me praying for throughout, and that was, I'm going to mispronounce his name, but that was Abram and his wife and his little boy. Yeah, I didn't talk to him very much. We had a couple of conversations, but he was one that the Lord just said, pray for him and his wife, and bless them. So it was cool how the Lord did that as well.
A bonus out of this thing, we get to know each other because we spend those 5 days and, you laugh.
Here it comes.
You just work together. And
She
it
was my
wasn't
roomie.
really, I didn't see any issues, but you get to be closer with your brothers and sisters and even though you don't see them every Sunday, you know their heart. Your heart is just wonderful. Yeah, So I think that was just, and the prayers that you guys were praying. Michelle, where are you? Where are you? You're here somewhere. There you are. You prayed before we left. You prayed that we were going to have restful sleep. And I don't remember the whole prayer, but I promise you, we slept like babies. Too much information. I wear a CPAP. I didn't take the stuff I needed for that CPAP, and I thought, oh my God, this is going to be insane. According to Teresa, I did not snore, and I was rested every single day. So the Lord heard you.
Yeah, and we opened up with the devotional that Levi and Hannah gave us in the mornings, and it was pretty cool how, if it was a prayer or a scripture that they shared, it went right with what we were doing in that day,
On
and it
point.
was really neat to see that, to hear it.
If I remember right, on Sunday, they prayed for at least 2 people to get saved.
Yes.
And we know for sure 2 people
Yeah,
got
Were
saved.
saved.
At least.
So the hearts of little children, it was really cool to see some of those little classrooms that they had for the kids. There wasn't much in there, but you can tell that with the little things that they did do. I took a couple of pictures, and it was just these little touches of these kids. I wish we had more time with kids, but it was nice.
Did you have a question?
And this may not make sense, but was there an exchange rate between the Cuban dollar and the American dollar?
There was, but they accepted dollars. So they have 2 forms of currency. They have their own peso, Cuban peso, and they have the American dollar that they do exchange. And so for the most part, we use American dollars. We had some exchange with pesos, but
The American dollar more valuable?
It depended radically on where you got the money exchanged.
And they wanted the American dollar.
Yeah.
They wanted it.
like the one day we did go shopping, they wanted American dollars.
When the hotel would have given us 200 pesos per dollar, but Gary knew, and I was reading this before we even went there, the exchange rate can vary by a factor of 10 depending on where you go. Gary was able to get us 450 pesos for every dollar, but if we would use pesos at the hotel because it would cost us, significantly more if we used dollars. So there was almost like this art form. You know, if you're at the market, you're going to use dollars. If you're at the hotel, you're going to use pesos.
Just to give you another example, though, of the crazy difference. So for the most part, we ate within the churches, but one night we went to dinner, so there was 8 of us at a restaurant, a decent, nice restaurant. We had appetizers, we had our main meal, we had a special like juice drink that was all around the table. The final bill was $96. So, yeah, for 8 people. And it was just crazy. But like the interpreter said, our family would never go to a restaurant like this. We could never afford it. And so, I mean, think about, we wouldn't think twice probably about going to a nice restaurant and spending $96 for 2 people, right?
I mean, a deodorant would cost them 1,500 pesos. So with the amount of money that they made, it was food or hygiene, medication. That's why they would ask for stuff like that.
That's why when we brought like deodorant, they were like excited.
Toothpaste and deodorant and Advil and, allergy medicine. And that was really helpful. They really loved that.
One of the things that made me think as I was working with the guys, they keep on wanting me to wear gloves, but their gloves they have holes in them, so they weren't really worth anything. I tried it on, I go, yeah, no, take it off. It made me think about what if I go again, or should I go again, what I would bring. And this time I left one of the guys, working man's hand cream. I brought some with me because I knew what I was up against. And I thought, you know what? These guys could use this because they're working around with concrete all the time, drying out your hands and all this kind of stuff, and it gets cracks in them and this and that. And I thought, you know what? They could also use tweezers where they're working with wood, And I told one of the guys, like, oh, we don't need that. I go, well, yeah, you say that now, but I know better. And then I thought, you know what? We got gloves here in the United States. We can just bring gloves with, for the work that they do. Well, when we brought aspirins, we brought some ointments, we brought, I don't know how many Band-Aids we brought or not. Yeah, we brought Band-Aids and stuff, and all the stuff that they wanted, that they need. But these were some other things that I saw that they could use, the guys that do this work. So that's one of the things I thought about, I could stockpile, get a whole bunch of it and bring it. But to answer Jill's question also is that one of the things when we were going through customs, you go, do you got any books? I thought, why would they care about books except maybe that propaganda, or maybe we hide something in the books? I don't know. And Tony helped me a lot with going to the customs because they speak so fast that I'm just like, speak slower, but they don't understand me. I don't speak Spanish. So I had to call her, and they kept on trying to keep her away from me, but finally she was able to come in and help, so that made a big difference. So thank you, Tony.
Do you have something, Carol?
I was going to ask, you were allowed to bring medication in?
Yes. Over-the-counter medication. Tylenol, ibuprofen, like I said, allergy pills, any histamines. Yeah, stuff like that. And again, like the waitress asking, Tony, do you have any blood pressure, high blood pressure medicine?
I
You
was,
know-
sorry, I was able to leave my inhalers for the pastor's daughter had just been diagnosed with asthma, and Pastor Gary got her a nebulizer. I said, well, I have preventive and rescue inhalers. She said, well, I'll take it. So I left my inhalers and anything. We left everything, shoes, whatever we went with. We were able to leave. We just left because they need everything.
And we gave stuff for the kids too. And we gave stuff for the kids too.
Yeah, the interpreter said, if you guys ever come back, he said anything from underwear to just toothpaste. We did take toothpaste and, basic necessities, which is what they need. Yeah.
Anybody else?
Who makes you books? Were you allowed to bring Bibles? Or was that something going to be told?
Well, I had my Bible in it, and they asked me if I had, and when it said any books, I said, well, I got my Bible, and they let me go through. But as far as a multiple, I don't know. No.
I don't know the answer to that. I mean, I imagine it didn't seem like there's a prohibition on Bibles. But
And everybody had iPhones too.
Yeah.
So like when it comes to, I'm sure they, like you, Verse, they probably had this younger generation, they do everything on their phones, but, yeah.
So they afford a phone though.
Family in the USA.
yeah, that was the
families-
question was asked.
Yeah, families, they have family or people that they know in the USA. In the US, they load up these cards so that they pay their phones and stuff like that. Because I sat on the way back home, I sat next to a couple that were coming in from Florida. They lived in Florida to visit family. And they actually bring things to their family 3 times a year. And they were celebrating a birthday. And I was talking to them about, different things. And yeah, they supply that kind of stuff for their families there as well.
With that said, it was so wonderful to see kids walking home from school and talking to each other and playing and not on their phones.
Playing in the street, playing kickball.
I
was
mean,
good.
they weren't like looking down everyone. So,
But I will say, I did see them on those mopeds, the passenger.
yes.
I even seen the passenger and the driver.
I'm glad you didn't say that because we were already praying with the fact that the way they were driving.
All right, anybody? What's that?
Any traffic rules at all?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Because when I was in Africa, there was no stoplights or stop signs, and it was a free for all. So
No, there were stoplights and traffic signs and.
And they had big craters too, so they stopped because of those too. Big craters, that's stopped there too. Those old cars that you saw just driving around in, or they drove around in, they would really gently drive these things, and they come to a little bump, they'll come to a stop, and then they go.
All right, Carol.
Were most of the cars automatic or stick shift?
Almost all of them seem stick.
Okay.
I don't see too, even like our van was a stick shift. So, just so the ministry bought the van that we rode around in, and they use it for other things. But Gary was trying to get car seats covers for the seats because when we work, sometimes we were dirty getting in the van, and it was help them clean it. So he went in Florida to a dealership, gave him the VIN number, and they came back and said, well, we're not going to sell you car seats because that vehicle's in Cuba. So there's an embargo against Cuba and here in America for a lot of these things that they wouldn't sell. So he's going to go back with just the Micra model and buy it and then bring it in on the airplane with them next time. But so there's crazy stuff like that is happening. So.
There was one other thing I found out there too, is that for the hospitals, one of the things that they really need is scalpels and surgical stuff, because they just don't have enough there to do that, but we can't break it in. You know, but they.
Too big.
They get, from what we're hearing is they have a good education
Mhm.
thing there, and the, huh?
Yeah, top, doctors.
Yeah, but they just don't have the stuff to do it. So,
All right. We got one more video to show. The last one. I know, but just show the last one.
No sientas más amor por mí, solo rencor. No tengo nada que decir, y eso es peor.
They were serenading.
That Pastor Kevin says he wants you to sing with him. No.
Es verdad que la costumbre es más fuerte que la... Sé que tú no puedes, aunque intentes olvidar.
We had to end with a little bit of fun. Well, that was hopefully a good. Hopefully, that was a good snapshot of you guys hearing a little bit about what God did on this trip. And thank you again, because we were your ambassadors there. I mean, we represented our church, and it was an honor to do it. But it was great to be on the ground and part of that. So maybe next time, if we go to Cuba, you'll want to go with us next time.